It does not mean that it's not something not supposed to happen. Most resentment, most anger comes from the feeling of that wasn't supposed to be that way. Well, it was, and it is, and the only thing one can do, one thing that I can do, is make a choice to move forward. Make the choice to move forward, because right at this point, right at this second, and this second, and this second, and this second, it's all fine. It's all just fine.
Welcome to the Funny in Failure podcast, a podcast that celebrates failure and shines the light on the emotional side of comedy, with yours truly, Michael Kahan.
Welcome, welcome, welcome. Holy moly, today's chat is incredible. Maurice is a brilliant storyteller with unique insights and an inspiring and caring nature about him. This was an absolute joy. Many things resonated with me in this chat, but one of the many was Maurice's mindset on moving forward, and the learnings he has applied following his father's murder and sobriety is incredibly inspiring to hear. I was mesmerized. Also, you'll want to wait till the end to hear about Maurice's experience and chat with the Dalai Lama. It is seriously mind-boggling. It's also so surreal to hear someone you listened to so closely in your childhood, and to meet them many years later is quite the awesome experience. So thanks to everyone for listening and helping these opportunities come into fruition. It's much appreciated. Thanks so much. Okay, back to the guest. I love this chat, and I think you will too. Maurice LaMarche is a Canadian comedian and voice actor from Toronto. He has serious credits with over 540 on IMDb, which is mind-boggling. Maurice is perhaps most well known for voicing the Brain from Steven Spielberg Presents Pinky and the Brain, for which he was nominated for a Daytime Emmy, Kif, Lrrr, Morbo and Calculon from Futurama, for which he has won 2 Primetime Emmys, and has also been nominated for a 3rd. Mr. Big from Zootopia, King Agnarr from Frozen, Mr. Freeze from Batman Arkham City, Yosemite Sam from the Looney Tunes Show, Abradolph Lincoler from Rick and Morty, Toucan Sam for 30 years in commercials for Froot Loops and Orson Welles from the Critic. He was also the voice of Lexus from 2009 to 2016. He's also had many roles in The Simpsons, American Dad, Disenchantment, Hey Arnold, The Powerpuff Girls, Scooby-Doo, and the SpongeBob franchise, just to name a few. So as you can imagine, we dive deep and we cover a lot, and we chat about meeting the Dalai Lama and the impact he had, his many voices, sobriety and moving forward, Futurama, professional autograph seekers, journey with live action, losing weight, the voiceover world post-COVID, listening, plus plenty more. Before we get into this epic chat, in case you aren't aware, the videos are now available on YouTube under Michael Kahan. That's Kahan with a K, unless you're listening to it already. I'll still be posting snippets of these chats on Instagram under Funny in Failure, so check them out if you want to stay in the loop for upcoming episodes, or you want to ask a guest a question. I'd also love it if you would share the podcast or share your takeaways from the chat. It really motivates me, helps the podcast grow, and ensures I can lock in amazing guests like this one. And just as a final reminder, the podcast comes out at 3:30 Melbourne, Australian time, with the full video of the podcast to be released the following day. Okay, cool. Thank you. Let's get into it. I don't have a name for this, so I hope that you can tell me about this. I believe you've had encounters with people who are professional autograph people who get your autographs and then sell them. I can see you nodding. Can you tell me about this? Because this blows my mind.
That's not a thing in Australia.
I've just never heard of it.
TV personalities, these are people. Some of them very nice people, but their thing is to. And Billy West and I have completely different attitudes about this, of course. But Billy, I'm sure when he was on your podcast, called them the Akhamans.
No, we did discuss it, but that's
you didn't talk about that. Okay, no. All right. We get people who they are professional autograph seekers. They will wait where they know we're performing. or I have had them be at the airport, not only at the airport, but on the other side of security. In other words, they're doing well enough with this that they can afford to buy a ticket, go through security as though they're a passenger. And of course, they're buying refundable tickets. So those are the most expensive ones. And then they go through and are waiting at the gate as we come off, which is what it used to be like in the 1970s. You used to walk somebody up to the gate and say bye-bye and then go back to your car. Now it's, got that thin little curb and that's all you get. And I have seen my autograph, something I know I've autographed for these people because I autograph differently for these folks than I do for when I do an autograph show, like a comic convention, something like that. I know you Nova there, and for those folks, I'll give a little inscription. I'll make sure my name is clear, and I'll write "the brain" in quotes. When I do it for these people, I really scribble my name, and I write "brain," so that I can tell this was a freebie.
I love that.
And then I'll look on eBay, or I'll look on a website called WorthPoint, which shows what things were valued at auction, no matter what they are. And I'll put in my name and see all the things that have been auctioned off and what they're. And some people get like as much as $150 for an autographed picture of one of my characters. And listen, I don't mind. I have no objection to helping people make a little money for themselves. I get things that are sent to my PO box, which I guess is on several websites. But I take my time, and people who have lined up and are kind enough to have cash in hand. They get priority. They get my time. They get a nice story. They get me to do the voice, and I write legibly for them. But if you're just, standing at my flight, making me late so that I'm not in group one anymore, you get a scroll and, and a happy how you do.
I love that you've figured out, because I'm sure this has been a slow process to realize what's been going on, and then you have to change your style depending on the person. But I'm sure it'd be so frustrating. I know you're a mensch. You told me.
They usually have, Michael. They usually have 4 or 5, 6, 10 things. They just keep shuffling them. Like I'll see a Pinky and the Brain on top of it. Sure, yeah, I got it. And how about again? Okay, fine. And then
just another
this
one.
Is where Billy West calls them the come ons. That's what they, because Billy will say, "Yeah, I got to go," and they'll go, "Oh, come on, just one more. Oh, come on." So that's why he calls them the come ons. I'm telling his story, and I feel bad doing that. But,
no, he will. I'm sure he'll appreciate it. You're sending it out to the world that to not keep on.
Yeah.
You can get 1 or 2, but not 10. Be respectful of people's time.
Well, I know they've got mortgages to pay and private jets to pay for, so it's it's fine.
Yeah, I like that. And you told me off air, and I think you're a mensch. You've obviously got a very different style to Billy as well, because it sounds like, and I would be on probably team Billy, where you'd be like, okay, but I'm catching a plane, or I'm getting off a plane, you're tired, you're exhausted, you're stressed, and then you've got someone dishing out 8 ones, and they're probably saying, oh, just another one, oh, just another one. So you're still giving your time and care. And you mentioned before that you had an eventful day because you found someone's wallet, and you shifted off via FedEx, which is very nice of you. So is that always how you see it? Because you've gone to so many Comic-Cons, you would probably been approached many times over your life where people would probably want a bit more than what you can give. So do you have the mentality of I just want to be treated how people you want to treat people how?
Yeah, I want to try. I don't treat people in a way that I wouldn't want to be treated. I do for people what I would want them to do for me, which is why I did the thing with the wallet. If somebody found my wallet, I would hope they would either run it over to the address on my wallet, or put it in, the FedEx would be great, because then I'd have it tomorrow and I could stop, fretting. So that's what I did. That's just my, they call it the golden rule for a reason. I mean, it's just, if everybody in the world, just follow that. Don't treat somebody the way you don't want to be treated. Never mind treating people the way you want to be treated, because that comes with expectation.
Yeah.
That comes with like drag to it. Never mind that. Don't try and figure out what I want, but don't treat me the way you wouldn't want to be treated. And that's just, if the world ran on that and everybody followed that, what a beautiful world it will be. I hope we don't have to pay Donald royalty for one line, but there we go.
I agree. I think that would transform the world in so many different ways. It reminds me of a Simpsons scene. I don't know if you remember, where the lawyer, where he sees everyone holding hands and there's like a rainbow and he goes, people get that reference, where it's like such a beautiful world. I agree with you. And did you ever think,
right?
But going back to like Comic-Cons,
does it creep him out?
Yeah, it creeped him out, but I just
creeps him out because he's a lawyer. Got it.
Yep. Thank you for clarifying that. And did you ever think, you've been in a lot of Comic-Cons, for example, that people would be able to make money off you? That's like another layer. Getting, the autograph situation, which I'm sure is very humbling and you get a lot out of it, but then to go to a step even higher, people are making money off you. Did you ever think that would happen?
No. I mean, I came across some old yearbooks, and actually a couple of people have posted on Facebook, things that I wrote in their yearbook. Not posted publicly, but sent to me in private chats. Old high school friends and acquaintances, and I would write in their yearbook, "Hang on to this because it's going to be worth something someday." Totally kidding. I had no idea I was going to actually end up in the entertainment industry. That's just not. If you grow up in Los Angeles, that becomes something you can tangibly see happening to people around you. But when you're in Toronto, Canada, it just doesn't happen. So I was totally kidding. And yet, yes, to think now that there are people who, and I can always tell because they're the people who say, "Yeah, don't put a personalization." Like, don't say.
That's so subtle.
to Michael, are you pondering what I'm pondering? The brain, Maurice LaMarche. Yes. I know you're keeping that. It would be right up next to your Babar.
Yes. I'll show you my other collection when I can move the camera, but that's a new one.
Excellent. Nice. So I know they're going to sell it. What am I going to do? You gave me $50 American for my signature. If you can go turn that into $100 American, 125, you've made an investment. You're getting a return on your investment. Enjoy. You should live and be well. It's a tremendous compliment to me that somebody could turn around and make money with my autograph. I mean, thank you. I mean, and thank you, universe, that I've been given a career where you can trade on my scribblings.
You have a very positive and empowering mindset. Who's the best person, while we're on the Comic-Cons, who's the best person to be next to? Like your best friend or someone there at a Comic-Con? Because just for context, at Comic-Cons, I'm sure it can be draining in a sense because you've got so many people who want to express, their love towards you and your artwork. So maybe there's someone that, keeps your energy levels high, or it's, fun to play around with, if there's anyone that springs to mind.
Well, I mean, I love being next to Rob Paulson, Pinky, from Pinky and the Brain. On the other hand, I feel somewhat I feel in the word isn't insufficient, but when you get to my age, Michael, what happens is you can remember the thing, you just can't remember the name of it.
It's happening to me already, so I resonate.
There's a concept here of, I look at him and how much time Rob gives to his fans. I mean, everybody gets at least 5 minutes.
Oh wow!
It's like an audience. It's like an audience with the Dalai Lama. He dispenses wisdom about how he got through cancer, and how grateful he is that he's got this blah blah blah, and how much it means to them that they waited so long, and I look and I go, I could do better. I could do better. I should spend a little more time. He's on his feet the entire time. I sit because even though I've lost 85 pounds. These knees
Oh,
cannot
nice.
take standing for, I'm only halfway home. I've still got another like 60 pounds to lose. But,
That's awesome.
these knees can't take standing for that period of time. And neither can this back, as it bends over to write things. So I stay in my seat, but I get up to, give a hug, or I get up to take a picture. But Rob is on his feet the entire time, and he's just so giving to these people who are kind enough to wait for our autographs. So he's great to be next to. John DiMaggio will always crack me up if I'm next to him. He's gotten me through a couple of tough cons where there was nobody in attendance, and his sarcastic asides are just hilarious.
I could imagine. So he's a funny guy.
Yeah, he's great. So but I mean, in the voiceover world, we are all an unusual community, and I know the on-camera actors, well, they have that too, but it's a toss-up. It depends on the show. It depends on the chemistry of that cast. Like I'm friends with LeVar Burton, and I know that all the next generation people, they hang together. They're on a text chain with each other all these years later.
That's
they're
great.
still texting with one another. And I have that with Futurama. We've got a little text chain called the Futurama Pals, and it's all the cast members plus Lee Supersinski and David Cohen, and we life events, and such. Lauren's son recently graduated, and things like that.
Oh, that's so great.
We keep up with each other. And then there are shows where I guess in the on-camera world the egos are high, and there's tension, and it doesn't go quite that way. I've never understood that. I mean, at the very worst situation I've had in the world of voiceover is kind of just, it's okay.
Yeah,
we're good guys. We're all good people, and and then we go our separate ways. But I mean, Transformers Rescue Bots, another show that you may not know because it was for 8-year-olds.
you never know.
The cast from that, that show, we still probably exchange a text every couple of days. Somebody, Jason Marsden, or Parvesh Cheena, or Steve Bloom, or we were just always Imari Williams. We're always and when can we get together, and when are we all going to be in the same town? Who's going to this con? Just try and make sure that we stay in touch. And the show's been out of production for more than 10 years.
People love hearing that because, as you know, well, I want to just tie up one thing. I know you're comparing yourself to Rob, who's the god of voiceover, as you are as well. And a lot of people have brought you up on the podcast. I mentioned your name in terms from the voiceover space. You're still very giving. You give in your own way. You're still there with the person. It's not necessarily, I know you're saying they give 5 minutes, but the quality that you give and how you see the person, how you interact with the people, still top notch. So I know I'm giving you unsolicited advice. You don't need to compare yourself to Rob Paulson because you are still very giving.
No, there are, believe me, I'm not. It's not a comparison to Rob Paulson in any.
No, I know. I'm just giving
my self-esteem down. We have different styles, and different weight classes. So I can't stay on my feet that long.
No,
but,
there's
ways. There are ways that I know that I can be uniquely helpful. I have been sober for 36 and a half years. So I have had people come up to me and tell me that, that they've followed me on social media and seen when I've made reference to my sobriety, and that it helps them. And I've had a couple of people come up and say they got sober because I was sober. And so, and we talk sobriety, and that's a way that I can be uniquely helpful. Whereas Rob will say, "Come on, let's go for a drink and celebrate your sobriety." No, I'm kidding. He wouldn't do that.
Oh, I love that.
He knows me and other people, sober well enough to know that that's not what you do.
Yeah, I know, and you guys are very good
Rob
friends.
is one of those people that can occasionally enjoy a glass of wine with dinner. I'm not. That's not me. That's that to me. If I was to try and have a glass of wine with dinner, it would be like swallowing Satan and letting him get his claws right under my heart, pulling me into hell. So I don't do that.
Okay, we're going to pigeonhole that because I got so many questions on the sober thing, but I want to talk about in terms of like the love of your castmates, because I would assume, and correct me if I'm wrong, people, like more times than not, people have spoken about jealousy in the industry, especially live action, where there can be a lot of jealousy, both internally and externally. The voiceover world to me seems quite small, and all the guys that are at the top of their game and girls, they all know each other. So is jealousy not as prevalent? Have you had to deal with it both internally and externally, or you're at a stage where, you know, it's all love around?
You know, there's just so much, there's so little to be jealous about. You know, when you do voiceover, for one thing, once you get going, you may have 2 or 3 jobs a day,
Wow.
you know, or in a given day. You know, the really lucky ones, and I was lucky in this way. You know, I could be doing an episode of Space Goofs in the morning, and then do a 2 o'clock session to do promos for Kids WB for Pokemon, and then have a 3 o'clock session for Pinky and the Brain. And, you know, it's like you get to realize that there's enough work to go around. And you know, if you're working in this business at all, you've got the talent and you're lucky, and you wish your fellow actors well. When there's an audition, you know, I'll be there with a bunch of other people. I mean, that's since, you know, COVID and the lockdowns changed everything. There's now no more going to a place and seeing everybody and auditioning.
Oh, not at all?
Hanging out in the waiting room and trading stories. No. We all audition from our homes, from our home studios, whatever shape they may be in. By the way, to explain to your viewers, those who are watching it, I've had a flood in here, so I had to pull all the foam off of the walls. And, you know, this is until we can get the cause of the flooding fixed, which is we need to repipe the house.
Oh, wow.
TMI, I don't care. But here, yeah. So my son and I just kind of hung these, you know, cheap, blankety things from the wall, and they're good enough to absorb the sound because I'm using a very good mic, Sennheiser 416, which you know is very localized anyway, and so, but we all audition from our homes, which is not a way I like to work. I love the immediacy of having somebody on the other side of the class, and if I'm reading for something comedic, trying to make them laugh. If it's a commercial, trying to tell them what a great car this is. I mean, I was lucky enough to be the voice of Lexus in the United States for 7 years, and I absolutely, when I was being directed, was telling the booth director about the best car I knew for the best price, and that I wanted her to benefit from getting this car. And so that's the technique I use. Is I talk to one person, and it's usually the booth director, or I picture my best friend.
Yeah.
So I'm not in love with the new normal.
Yeah, I wouldn't.
Recording out of your home studio. We're very lucky on Futurama, and we are still working on new episodes. Thank God that the protocols were lifted, and as soon as they were, we were 2 and 3 in a studio, and 4, and now we probably record with at least 6 in the studio. We can't always get Katie because she's filming. She was filming in South America, an entire TV series for most of the run. So we didn't often see Katie, but we were, Lauren Tom and Dave Herman and Phil Lamar and John DiMaggio and Billy West and me. We were almost always in the studio together, cracking each other up.
That, to me, that's a dream. I've always thought I wanted to. I'd love to. I've written an animation script, and I've made sure that I'm going to play one of the characters and maybe some other characters in my made up world. But the joy of doing it in person is not comparable. What does it feel like, especially?
No. Well, it's like you are. It's all the good stuff about acting, which is creating a character and figuring out their inner life and what they want and what they're fighting for and what they're afraid of, and playing their flaws, foibles, and idiosyncrasies. And no memorization.
Yes, that's the best part.
No worrying about your key light, or your mark is this far away from the microphone or better. Yeah. That's all you need to know. As long as you're not closer than this, you shouldn't pop. You'll be all right. And just it's purely about the work. You don't have to get into a costume. You don't have to spend 4 hours in makeup. If I was playing Morbo the newscaster for a live action version of Futurama, I would be 6 hours in makeup before I could stand in front of a camera, sweating, going, Morbo is pleased yet sticky.
Oh,
You know,
yeah, there's just something like I know it's not the same, but I'll have my friends read my script sometimes so I can hear it as well, and it is
yeah.
so much better when I hear them read it out and sometimes me with them than me just going all over it in my head or in my mind or sometimes out loud. It's
Oh,
not the same.
absolutely. You need to hear it on its feet, and you need to hear it to go. Is that the way people talk? You know, and yes, you know, if you write the way people talk, you're already way ahead of the game.
Oh, thank you. That's good advice. And just from also, you mentioned before the elevation of performance as well, being with your peers, because I'm sure there's a lot of banter. And it makes you feel great as well. When you're having, those conversations or you're reading your lines and you're being in the room, don't you feel so uplifted and just inspired? To me, that's like the ultimate.
Yes, absolutely, because they are. Look, Howie Mandel told me long time ago. We both started out in this business together, and he was, he was lucky enough to get a terrific manager and a terrific agent that got him out on camera, and he was going out on things like, of course, Saint Elsewhere was the thing he nabbed. But I remember he was reading for the film My Favorite Year. He came very, very close. He became very, very close on Splash. He never got discouraged. But one of the things he said was that somebody had taught him, because he really didn't take an acting class. But the one thing he needed to learn, he said, here it is, the bottom line: acting is listening. And I that stuck with me. Acting is listening. It's not where should I put my hands for this next line, or it's really engaging with the other person, forgetting, memorization and all that, and then letting all that go, being in the scene and listening to the other actor and making them more important than you. And if you do that, it comes. Your performance just comes. So in voiceover, in doing animation, we already eliminate the other stuff. I can just truly be listening to Fry, and respond to him as Kiff, and have it be just a very real interchange. Or when Billy changes gears and he's Zap and I'm Kiff, I let him irritate me. I let him wear me down. I let that land in that way so that my can be genuine. I mean, it's just it's really more about listening than anything else, and that's what I love about doing voiceover the old way, the old school way. And I hope more and more shows get back into studios and let the casts interact as casts.
In my magical world, this script that I'm talking about, it's going to be in person. That's going to be the rule. I think it elevates the performance. And you briefly mentioned, I got so many questions, but you briefly mentioned that Howie had a really good manager or agent. How important is a good agent or manager in the space?
Oh, very, very. They're the ones that get you, that open the doors for you. I have an excellent voiceover agent. I've never really had the luck to have a terrific on-camera agent, and I kind of gave up on camera a couple of decades ago. I just, I gained a lot of weight, and nobody could really see me because they'd known me slimmer. Nobody had the imagination to sort of transform me into a character actor. Yeah. Everybody was just, I got a lot of, well, if you just would take off 40 pounds, we could send you out on leading man stuff, comedic leading man stuff, because that's the way they saw me. I was with a great agency, big agency, but they, when I came on board, I was a skinny stand-up comic, and I remember the head of the motion picture department said, "We see you as our next Michael Keaton." Now, Michael Keaton had done 2 pictures at that point. He'd done 2 pictures, so it was not like the Michael Keaton of now, who's been Oscar nominated. It was like, yeah, sure, I know Michael Keaton. I see him play. I've seen his stand up at the Comedy Store, and he was the best Asteroids player I'd ever seen in my life. He would play Asteroids at the bowling alley in our neighborhood, and I'd go and watch him. His hand was so fast that it was a blur, and I was like, I can't make it work that fast. That's amazing. And Well, of course it's amazing. He's Batman.
Exactly.
I'm Batman. So, but, I know that one of the themes of your podcast is being funny in failure, or finding the humor in failure. Well, this was a way that I did fail, because the more pressure came on me, lose the weight so we can send you out, comedic leading man, blah, 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 the more I ate, the more I felt that I needed to soothe the feelings of anxiety I had. And I no longer had drugs and alcohol to do that, because I'd gotten sober, and that's when my weight gain began. So I began to look for that comfort in food, and I overate. I overate for many, many years. Managed to give myself a nice case of diabetes, which I have in remission now. I'm proud to say, with the weight I've lost and eating right. My numbers are below the diabetic range.
Good,
but I also know I'll always have an abnormal pancreas, and I can't play around, as it were. I will never be totally normal. But I've gotten used to never being able to drink or do any kind of pharmaceutical for recreational purposes in my life for 36 and a half years. So I can live with that too. The road gets narrower and narrower the older you get, Michael. So just enjoy your youth. Whatever age you are, I know you think, God, I've never been this old. But to the other way to look at that is, I'll never be this young again. Look how well my knees work. Oh my gosh. Everything works. Oh, fantastic. I get up, I can get out of a chair without going, or tie my shoes without winding up like it's an athletic event. So, just enjoy how you are right now.
Great advice.
Never be this young.
Thank you. I
have to take it myself. At 67 years old, I know when, if I get to be 77, I'll look back on this podcast and go, look how much energy I had. I had no idea how good I had it.
Well,
oh my gosh.
I'm going to challenge you on that. Because of all the wonderful things you're doing now, you might actually find your, inverted commas, de-aging in a sense, like losing, 85 pounds. That's incredible. I'm sure you've noticed some, more energy or less pain or mental clarity.
Yeah, I feel younger. I feel younger for having lifted the weight that I lift, because that's strength training is something I absolutely have committed to 3 times a week.
Oh, nice.
And then aerobic exercise is also a big part of it too. But so I've never been this strong. You ask me, I'm 67 years old. If you ask me to grab the end of a couch and help you move the couch, it's fine. I feel like Superman in a strange way. I mean, it's like I'm stronger than I've ever been. And I know I have to keep this up. Yep. You don't just stay fit. You've got to keep fit.
Yep.
So, however long I'm able to do this, I want to feel as good as I can for all the days of my life.
Very inspiring. And I want to go back to food, because, we'll talk about we'll be in this as well, but your sober journey as well. Sugar for me has always been an addiction, and I've heard you speak about it briefly on one podcast as well, of how, sugar, for example, we can numb ourselves, and food as well, comfort food as well. Do you think it was a bit of like potentially a self-sabotage? Because when you're getting all this positive feedback, you can be a leading man, all of these things, was this a way to cope, or was it still dealing with, some of the previous traumatic experiences that you'd gone through?
I don't know if certainly not consciously. I don't think I ever thought to myself, things are going too well, I want to sabotage that.
Yeah, it never is. Yeah.
I think maybe on a subconscious level, I believe I've had the thought subconsciously, don't get too big for your britches, or you'll turn into an asshole. Don't get too big for your britches, because the fall will be harder when it inevitably comes. So thoughts like that, but I don't know that I've consciously sabotaged myself, or just simply not gone forward in a way that I could have, in a way that, a tremendous amount of belief in myself has always eluded me. I've always gone, you're lucky to be where you are.
Oh, nice.
Just be happy where you are. And I know that I've got friends who have really, hit the stratosphere. I mean, Howie Mandel among them. He never doubted himself. He never had that sense of, people don't want to hear from me. He doesn't have that thought, which is a good thing, because he's always interesting.
Yep.
But I will have that thought. I'll think to myself, who wants to hear my take? You know, yeah, just read the script. You know, show up. You're lucky to get the job. Go up, read the words. You know.
Yep.
And you know, it's an area I still need to work on, much to the chagrin of my therapist, who, coming full circle with mentioning that Howie Mandel came very close on the movie My Favorite Year, my therapist actually wrote that movie.
Oh, whoa.
My therapist wrote the original story and half the screenplay, and then promptly got out of show business and said, I want to help people. So he, it wasn't exactly on the heels of that, but sometime in the 90s, Dennis Palumbo decided that he was more interested in, he'd taken a couple of psychology classes to actually deepen his writing. And what happened was he was so fascinated with the human mind and psychology that he decided to go for his degree and still tried to stay in the business. And then one day he was at lunch, and he'll tell this story on podcasts and in print. He was at lunch with, I can't remember which studio bigwig it was. I want to say Barry Diller, but it may not have been. And he kept looking at his watch because he didn't want to be late for his 1:30 group with his schizophrenics that he was facilitating, the therapy group for schizophrenics. And that's when he calls it his come to Jesus moment. He realized that helping people was more important than show business.
That's
so he loved creatives. He always loved creatives, and he loves the creative process, but he hates the business side of it.
Yes.
And so he got out of it. He got out, and he became one of the most sought after psychotherapists in Los Angeles, because he works almost primarily with writers and some performers, you know.
Wow. So you don't hear stories like that. I went the other way. I studied kinesiology, so we look deep within the subconscious and blah, 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 psychological aspects as well. And now I've gone to writing, but I apply that very much so in my writing as well. But what a guy as well. Well, I'm not saying this.
Well, you use everything. It's all grist for the mill, you know. Now, my wife was an actress, and she still winces when you say was, but she's not actively seeking it. She still has those talents.
Yeah.
But my wife, 3 Sundays ago, walked in cap and gown with her master's degree in psychology.
Oh, wow.
And she's now got clients. She's doing her traineeship. She's got 5 clients, and she is, you know, just really digging, you know, being in a therapeutic relationship with these 5 people. She's building up her hours. You know, in California, you have to do 3,000 clinical hours before you can actually go for the license and then be a psychotherapist under your own license. So she's got a couple more years ahead of her before she can hang a shingle outside of an office and start seeing people on her own. So but she's really enjoying the journey. It's been an enriching, deep journey for her.
Good on her for following. Yeah, good on her for following her passions.
Yeah, I couldn't be prouder of her. I mean, it's not an easy thing to do.
Yeah, especially when you feel like, and you know, also talking about your therapist as well, you feel like maybe you need to be a writer or an actor, and you do that, and then maybe hits a point where, you know what, done that, enjoyed it, on to the next journey. It can be hard to kind of say to move on, so it takes a lot of courage as well.
Yeah.
And just tying back to the live action as well. So when you were receiving, you're going to be the next Michael Keaton as well, what was happening to you at that stage? Were you embracing, was this after comedy, or was voiceover more prevalent at the time? Where
no, it was during my stand-up times. That's how I kind of got with them, is that they saw me at the Comedy Store. It was just something I went on. I went on auditions. I came close on a couple of things. Came very close on Moonlighting, which was the vehicle that launched Bruce Willis. It was me, and I did not learn this till years later, an actor named Harley Venton and Bruce. So now you can see it online. If you write, put input on YouTube, but Moonlighting screen test. It's back to back. It's also in the special features of the DVD box set, and it'll show the screen tests for both Harley Benton and Bruce Willis with Sybil Shepherd for Moonlighting. And the thing of it is, from Maurice's point of view, I went on a Friday for my last audition. It was my third callback, I think. And they said, if it goes well, you will do the chemistry read on Monday with Sybil Shepherd. And I got no phone call on Monday. So it was down to 3. They said, it's down to 3, you and 2 other guys. So I was the first to get eliminated on that. But if you look at Harley Venton, he could pass for my older brother. You know, we're the same. If you look at a picture of me from the 80s and Harley, we have the same hairstyle, same cheekbone structure. We were the same, you know, kind of weight, even dressed similarly. And you know, so it's like, oh, okay. I always thought they got rid of me because I sucked, you know, never thinking you came in third after this cattle call for this new hit show, you know, by the creators of Remington Steele. So, you know, instead of, you know, patting myself on the back, I thought it was, well, I guess you just weren't quite good enough. No, for one thing, I was 5 years too young, because Sybil Shepherd is 9 years older than me. And they probably just went, you know what, it's going to look weird on camera. He's 27, you know, and she's, you know, 36. So it was, you know, that part of the on-camera thing. Well, there was another thing that I came so close on, and now I'm blanking on it. But
if it comes, it comes.
I went too far down the rabbit hole with moonlighting, but there was something else, another thing where I was like almost the guy. You know,
see, that's what I've always admired about actors as well, where, you know, being in the top 3, even top 5, top 10, whatever. That is an incredible achievement in itself, but it doesn't pay the bills. It doesn't get you the role. It doesn't necessarily, you know, it can help you move forward in other areas, but it can be quite brutal, and you still keep on getting up. That blows my mind.
My wife, this is what's great about having a wife who is psychologically inclined and always was. She always said, your job is to make fans. You're not out there to get the job. You're out there to make fans, because if you make fans out there in the casting world, they'll come back to you. They'll find something for you. And she's absolutely right. I just didn't stay in the on-camera world long enough. You know, part of my story is, if you've read up on me at all, you know, my father was murdered.
Yeah.
And that was the catalyst for me spiraling out of control, both with drugs and alcohol and depression. And you know, and clawing back from that very slowly. You know, just even becoming functional again after getting sober. Yep. But you know, it was a millstone around my neck for a long time, where I held a view that the universe was arrayed against me. You know, God didn't like me. Well, these are terribly egotistical thoughts. You don't think they will be, because, you know, you're not pumping yourself up with them, but they are still. To think that I'm so important that God actually has it in for me,
yep.
You know, is highly narcissistic, and you know, and it ended up being that thing that held me back, instead of being able to just breathe through it, realize it was a thing that happened, not attach any meaning to it, because it doesn't have a meaning. It's just a thing that happened, and carry on. And carry on and carry on.
It's very, you know, it's obviously learned experience, and I want to talk about the AA program. We've spoken about this a bit. I also spoke about it with Billy West.
Oh, I don't know anything about the AA program. My understanding of AA is that its members are anonymous, and therefore don't discuss their membership in Alcoholics Anonymous. I do, however, have many friends who are in Alcoholics Anonymous, and I can tell you how it helped them.
Yep. Okay, I understand what you're saying. We've spoken about the lessons learned without diving into, you know, those experiences, and I would just build a bit of context as well, because I know you've spoken about this. So sorry if I sound insensitive. Obviously, extremely traumatic. Losing your father, he was murdered by his best friend. That's
a one-time best friend. Yes.
Yes, exactly. And then unfortunately your sister was in a car accident, I think several years later as well. Very tough. I think you lose some friends along the way. And, you know, you were really thriving in stand-up comedy, and I think you give up stand-up comedy at that stage because
stand-up stopped when my dad died. I tried to restart it, and then my sister died, And then I made one last attempt to kind of get back up on stage, and my mother died.
Wow.
Now, my mother was the death I'd been waiting for, been preparing for all my life. She'd been, as she would say, sickly. That was a word she actually liked to use in reference to herself. Yeah. She had rheumatic fever as a child. She'd had polio as a child.
Oh, wow.
And this was in the 1920s and 30s. And 40s. And so, she just didn't have a great constitution to start with. Yep. She died at the age I am right now, 67, of kidney failure, because that's part of the consequences of rheumatic fever. Yeah. But it was the death I'd been preparing for, and I was discussing this with somebody this morning. All the things that I worry about or worried about or tried to prepare myself for were the things that didn't happen. The things that knocked me on my ass were things I never saw coming. Mm. So you can't prep. You cannot spend your time perseverating and worrying about, what if this happens? What if that happens? I got to make sure that, yes, wear your seatbelt. Absolutely. But that doesn't mean that,
the planning
you're
for
going
the
to stave
car
off
accident.
your own death, because it may not be a car accident that kills you. Probably won't be. But wear your seatbelt anyway. Do some prudent stuff, but don't drive as though every driver's out to get you.
Hard way to be.
When all those things happened, when all those deaths occurred in a very short space of time, I lost my sister, my father, and my mother within 5 years. Again, it was hard not to make it about me, in the sense of thinking the universe was, that I was an unlucky soul, any of those things. I used to say, well, the Kennedys have had a lot of tragedy too, but and the Kennedys have touch football, and we had complaining, we had aerobic complaining in my home. So, but life, as we go along, life just it gets lifey. And loss is part of life. And just because it comes in a concentrated dose when you're young, it does not mean that it's not something that was not supposed to happen. Mm. Most resentment, most anger comes from the feeling of that wasn't supposed to be that way.
Yeah.
Well, it was, and it is. And the only thing one can do, one thing that I can do, is make a choice to move forward. Make a choice to move forward, because right at this point, right this second, and this second, and this second, and this second, it's all fine. It's all just fine.
Mm. I've got 20,000 questions, and I believe you spoke about on another podcast, you're thinking about writing a book. I hope that all of this stuff, everything that you've said in podcast interviews, goes in your book, because it's very important. Where do we start? So, obviously, going through that, you give up comedy, and then I've got a quote from you, and you would work in voiceover for those 3 years until you couldn't work anymore. So what was the catalyst for change, and how were you actually, working during that time as well?
I said that. I said I worked in voiceover until I couldn't work anymore.
You worked for 3 years until you couldn't work anymore.
Huh? You mean in the space after my father died?
Yeah, I think that when you then decided to be on alcohol and drugs, that you're working.
That. Yeah. Oh yeah, no, I pounded. I did everything I could to anesthetize myself. Mm. Yes, and it was almost like a job. I mean, it was almost like my work is to drink and use as much as I can so I don't feel anything. Yep. And oh, by the way, I can still do voiceover. Somehow I could always pull off voiceover. Couldn't get back up on a stage, but I could do voiceover. And when I got to my last day of drinking and using, I really thought I was going to be going up, to the dealer's house for one more time, because I'd made a couple of attempts to stop, and then thought, screw it, it's only 2 or 3 days of sobriety. I'm still pissed off. Let me go get a bottle, or let me go up to the dealer's house and buy some blow. And the day where I stopped, was Inauguration Day. It was Reagan's last day in office and George Bush Sr.'s first day in office. And I remember watching the inauguration, and for no other reason than I just went, I want more. I headed to my dealer's house. And as I'm driving to my dealer's house, and as I said, I'd been trying to stop for many, many times. I knew there was a gathering of friends who don't drink. But I wasn't consciously headed there, but it was on the way to my dealer's house, and a little voice in my head said, it's over, turn left.
Wow.
And quite against my will, my hand went up and flipped the left turn signal. And I was right at the street where this gathering was. The non-cocktail party, shall we call it. And I went, and even as I'm driving down that short street where it's the street where they filmed Seinfeld. It was on Radford Avenue in Studio City, and there's a whole bunch of sound stages there. And it was CBS Radford at the time. It's funny that an NBC show, Seinfeld, filmed at CBS Radford, but that's how it went in those days. Yeah. And I got there, and I thought, there's not a parking spot. Screw it. I'm turning around and going up to the dealer's house. And somebody pulled out right in front of the cobblestone steps up to the little clubhouse. And I went, all right, I'm going in. And as soon as I went in, I heard somebody speaking up at the podium and said, if you don't take the first drink, you can't get drunk. And I was like, well, that doesn't make sense. I'm usually not drunk until the third or fourth drink. At least I don't want to start feeling anything until. So I went up afterwards and I said, what do you mean by that? If you don't take the first drink, you can't get drunk. He goes, well, when you're hit by a train, is it the caboose that kills you? Oh, I get it. Okay, the first drink. Get it. I can't successfully take the first drink without taking all the rest of the drinks.
Yeah.
I take the first drink, and the first drink takes all the other drinks. And another person said, this is a one day at a time deal, and all by one day, I don't mean midnight. I mean your head hits the pillow. When your head hits the pillow, the day's over. It doesn't matter if it's 2, 3 in the morning. That's still today, because it's always today. Yep. And I realized at that point too, I've been playing the 12:01 a.m. game, and I've been going to get drinks and booze and all the other stuff. If I'd gotten to midnight and I still felt like shit. Yep. And lo and behold, armed with those two things, I was able to put together a real day of sobriety and with the rest of that day. And I count that as my first day, because I was birthed as a sober person on the day. I didn't throw that day away and go, well, start fresh the next day, January 21st. I just went, nope, you came out of the birth canal that day. So, just as we celebrate the day your mom's water broke and you came out as your birthday. Doesn't matter, you spent part of it in utero. That's your birthday. So that's my birthday, January 20th, 1989. And I haven't found it necessary to take a drink or a drug since.
That is so amazing and empowering to hear. And I know
it's when I started feeling my feelings. It's when I was willing to go through the discomfort of feeling my feelings, which was all I was trying to hide all that time. And even as a child, by hiding in televisions. One of the reasons I'm decent at what I do, spent my entire childhood in TV, watching television, watching cartoons, knowing, when my mom's shows were on or when my grandmother's shows were on. My mother used to call me the living TV guide when I was 7 years old. I just, because if I could lose myself in TV, I could not hear the raging that was going on in my house, because my mother was a rager, and my father was, God bless him, he was a handsome fellow, and he would give you the shirt off his back, generous, but he was a philanderer. I guess we'd call him a sex addict today. But get a rager and a philanderer in the same house creates quite a dynamic, So, but he was Don Draper handsome. He was that kind of, like, he walked in a room and people turned to look.
Oh wow! I wish
he fit in a suit, like the suit was made. Suits were made just for this man. That's the way my dad, that's the kind of presence my father had. He looked like Guy Williams from Lost in Space and Zorro, but at 5'7" and with blue eyes. Oh, so wow. that would be Yeah, that's my dad. And he had
Wow.
the bearing of Ricardo Montalban. Yeah, and yet he was French, not Hispanic.
Oh, interesting. And there's so many points, but one, this is just for me, and I know it's a very silly comparison, but like, for example, with sugar, I don't drink also, but just because I don't enjoy it. But, we always say, oh, I'll do the exercise tomorrow, or I'll have the burger or the ice cream today and I'll start tomorrow. But knowing in that moment, it's all about today. That's going to transform me and so many different people's worldview as well. How did your life change after that decision? And I'm sure it's very difficult. There was a lot of ups and downs and bumpy, but yeah, what changes?
Well, as I said, first thing is you start feeling your feelings. Even if you're lumping sugar on top of it, or pizza or whatever, still there's nothing. It's not in the league of the kind of a numbness and anesthetizing you can get from an 8-ball of cocaine and a bottle of vodka. So you begin feeling things, you begin processing things, you begin realizing that the way you've been living. I began realizing, I'm not going to say you. Yeah. There's no you that lives their life exactly the same way as me. I began realizing that I was living life as a very large child. As a child with body hair and some money. But I stopped thinking that the whole deal was about me. And as one throws oneself into service, as one must do, if one is working a spiritual program to overcome alcoholism, because stopping drinking is just the start. Now you have to have a psychic change. Turn the prism outward, away from you, because to drink and use, while there's a physical manifestation of craving that occurs in alcoholics, there's also a psychological component that makes you, want to shut the world out and shut the feelings out and make the choice to take a drink. And as I get away from everything self-directed and kind of go into other-directed, helping others, not just fellow alcoholics, but everybody and anybody. I'm relieved of self-obsession. And as I'm relieved of self-obsession, I don't need to quite shut off the noise as much. And little by little, I just start noticing that I'm showing up. I'm showing up for life more. I'm being honest in all my affairs.
Just going to say that's very difficult, going through all of that. And then not only there's a lot of even, you're feeling emotions for the first time, but then you're also, battling addiction. So like mentally, you could be like spiraling. What did these therapy, how did it deepen your connection with yourself, especially
my new way of life, is maybe we can call it that, and this way of life. Well, as I said, the key is for me to be less and less self-directed, and just to show up and be of service to others and help. And in that helping, I've just found I've transformed. The honesty component, that's really the main key. Don't deceive others. Don't deceive myself.
Yes.
So I've got to constantly take inventory of my behavior and little by little, I have to examine my motives on almost everything I do. Especially, I can go into extreme people pleasing as well. So I've got to make sure that when I do something, I'm not just doing it so that I can win somebody over and then feel good about myself. I got to do it because I really want to help the person.
Yep.
But the more I do it, the more practice I get at actually genuinely wanting to help people. And now it comes naturally.
Oh, that's awesome. Because I know a big theme is, being of service as well. And you've had many people help you, and I'm sure you've had mentors. I think one small example, you said Billy West, had a conversation with you, but you also provide this to other people. You mentioned Comic-Cons as well. That's pretty exciting. Yeah.
Billy was already sober when I met him. He was about 3 years sober. And we met on The New Adventures of Beanie and Cecil in 1987. And we were working on that show in Vancouver, Canada. And I was still in my cups and still in the, still in my Coke spoon. And he saw what was going on with me. And he didn't lecture to me or dictate to me in any way. He just told me about his story and how he used to be exactly like me or worse. And he made it possible for me to conceive of of a life without it. I mean, I didn't go dive head first into it because that was 87 and I didn't get sober until 89.
But he planted the seed.
He did.
Because that's really all you can do is show someone the door. You can't force someone to do anything.
No, absolutely not.
And
they've got to, any person wanting to stop has to want to themselves and be willing to pick up a very simple kit of spiritual tools and to do it. If they decide to go that. There are people that can just, white knuckle it and stop it. And I don't know how comfortable they are in their own skin, but there are people who can just stop drinking. And then, hopefully they're not, too uncomfortable, but mine has been the easier, softer way, as they say.
What I love about this, despite all the hardships as well, that you're able to look back and see what you've learned, what you've gained, how you become more resilient, you learned deep within yourself often, and there's no criticism whatsoever. Life can happen either for us or against us, and you've decided that it happens for you. That's a big shift mentally, especially for a lot of people to kind of move that victim mindset as well. I assume that was quite the journey as well through, being of service, working with people, discussing people, working on therapies, looking at yourself. You mentioned a deeper spiritual connection, however that may look. Was that an overnight thing or a slow build?
Slow, very slow. I'm as we say, I had the kind of the educational kind of spiritual experience, and I've tried on several hats in terms of like an approach to whatever is running this universe. We can call it God, we can call it, Yahweh, we can call it, Adonai, whatever we can call it, Allah, whatever. I don't know. I don't have a name for it. I refuse. At this point in my life, I think even naming whatever it is hubris something, or to pretend I understand or subscribe to a system, any particular system to approach that, whatever the universe is or whatever runs the universe. But I have two choices. I can act as if life has no meaning, or I can act as if life has some meaning, and I choose to act as if my life has some meaning, and the meaning is that I'm supposed to be good to my fellow man and woman.
I love that. That's why I do the podcast. Very empowering. I've got one question before I bring up something sort of on that topic. What's your relationship with it now? Is it still something you think about all the time? Can you go out for dinner and see everyone do this, and does it impact you?
My relationship with the now, like the now and present.
You with the sobriety side, like dealing with seeing other people drink and alcohol, is it something that's still on your?
Your
question was better. We can go to yours.
That comes so easily to me. It's not funny. It's just, I just look at it as that's their alcohol. That's their booze. Those are their drinks. Now, if I happen to ever find myself in a situation where somebody pulls out, a gram of cocaine and lays out a line, I have to leave. I have to go. It's not a judgment thing. My euphoric recall of what the first one felt like is still like, I can still feel the way it hit me, even now.
Yeah.
So I have to go because it would be ridiculously tempting.
Yeah.
So, but alcohol, none of my business. Your drinking is none of my business. If you, the generalized you, or any person, want to stop drinking and you want my help, then it becomes my business to help you stop drinking. But your drinking is none of my business. So I don't find booze tempting more than 4 times a year, where maybe I'll go, that looks like a very velvety glass of red wine. I bet that would be wonderful with this steak. For somebody else, not for you, because you're an alcoholic. So if you have that for a sip of wine, by the end of the night, you've, probably gotten into a bar fight, and you've probably, searched out, a cocaine dealer, and you've left everybody you came here with behind as you go on this hunt for more. And who knows where your career will be in 3 weeks, or your relationship with your kid. My kid has never seen me drunk, never seen me loaded.
Oh, nice.
seen me be a jerk,
Yeah.
but he's never seen me loaded. I've got sober 5 years before he was born. So, he never seen me. It's
Amazing.
really an unlovely stuff. Yeah.
And you mentioned what's your relationship with the now? Can you tell me about that?
The now, yeah. I love that we're building an interview based on my mishearing.
Yeah, I love it as well.
We
Do
got
a
to
great
use
job.
we use it. We use what we're given, right? So
Yep.
that's good. I think that's wonderful. That's improv. Just use what you're given. The now, constantly trying to stay in it, trying to, and I'll always do it imperfectly. Like I can't always be in the nights. It's a momentary thing where I just like the snapping of the fingers. Like by the time that finger is snapped and that sound has hit my ears, it's already another moment.
Yeah.
But even in that moment, in this moment, it's always fine. I have some friends with some cute sayings, and one of them is, "It's all going to be okay in the end, and if it's not okay, it's not the end."
Oh.
And I just love that.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, I try not to sweat too much in this life, because always in motion is the future. So, it's right now it's okay. I can worry about my taxes, but what's the good of that? I can be prepared for my taxes, but to worry about my taxes, it's not going to do me any good because that day isn't here yet right now.
I agree. And the worry and the stress, from the kinesiology perspective and, spiritual perspective, so many different perspectives that only impacts you, and it's probably not even going to happen. But talking about the wisdom side, I know this is a whole long story, so we'll see how we go. But you met the Dalai Lama and you had like a private conversation, which is unheard of. Can you give me a bit of a brief story about the encounter, what you learned from it?
Well, okay. So this is a 10-minute long story. I'll try to condense it. So, as I got sober, I wanted to be, kept apprised of my father's murderer and what was going on with him, and I signed up with the parole board. So if you should ever seek parole, I wanted to go to the parole hearings, and I went to 3 parole hearings. So I sat in the same room with my father's killer 3 times, and it took a toll on me, and emotionally, and I believe my father's killer is a sociopath. I believe he has not the ability to distinguish right from wrong, or if he does, it's only in an objective sense and not a subjective sense, and that his only regret is that he got caught.
Okay, yeah.
I don't think he's got an actual conscience. So when you're in a room with a human
Like that,
who has that deficit, it's a little frightening, and my resentment, my hatred towards him built up with each of these encounters, and finally,
understandably.
So finally in 2004, I was finally going to be allowed to speak, because at that point you could only submit a written statement in Canada. You couldn't make any impassioned speeches at the parole hearing, and the parole hearings were these mundane things anyway. I mean, we all think of them as like these things that happen in these council chambers. No, it's in a little conference room, tiny little conference room.
All right.
But I thought I'd be able to, make the case. I never wanted him to get out of prison, and he worked the system quite well, with the exception of at one point in his incarceration, because he was an older man, so they moved him to minimum security. He was actually working a scam where whenever an inmate would die, he and a couple of the other inmates kept his Social Security checks.
Oh, wow.
Coming by just constantly sending in requests, and so they would cash his Social Security checks because they had some freedom in the day parole to go to the banks, and so they would live high off the hog off of these guys. This guy's social, these inmates' Social Security kids, these inmates. So he got a slap on the wrist for that. But other than that, he gamed the system very well and was having a better than average, incarcerated life. Prisons in Canada are very clean.
Yeah.
And it's so the long and the short, it tore me up, and I was going to be preparing a statement to, use my tremendous oratory skills, and nothing would come. And I was trying to write for, a couple of weeks, and I'd written everything I needed to write. So I was on my way to Vancouver, and for business, and I was late for the flight, and I'm running for the plane, and I almost didn't make it. And as I'm running for the plane, I go through and I go down the jetway, and there's a Secret Service agent there who puts his hand up and says, "Stop." I said, "I'm sorry, I'm late for the plane." It's all right. It's all right. But we have a VIP coming on the plane, and you have to wait there. I said, "Okay." And I had looked and saw a limo pull up to the foot of the plane, and I had seen I had seen the leg. I thought maybe it was going to be, Schwarzenegger or somebody like that.
Yeah.
Who pulls up to the jetway of a plane and comes up that way. But I saw the brown hush puppy and the rust-colored sock and the bare leg and the saffron robe, and I realized who it was. And I said, I think I know who it is. And they came through that little doorway where usually it's the guys that have got the earmuffs on, and they're doing this with the planes. And he kind of gave a little wave to thank me and I think one other person for waiting. And he got on the plane, and he was, the Secret Service agent was waiting to hear. And I asked him, I said, "What's it like? You worked with him whenever he's in the United States?" He goes, "Yes, sir. Yes, sir. I'm very lucky. I'm with the State Department, and he's really the real deal."
Wow.
He said we were at the Century Plaza Hotel last night, and he was addressing an audience. There was a little girl, front row, developmentally disabled, totally in a wheelchair and barely had any mobility. And instead of walking off stage, it would have been easy for him. He had jet lag. He came down in the audience and prayed with her and put his hands on her and gave her a blessing. I said, he's the real deal, the Secret Service guy said. And I said, "Wow, that's amazing." I said, "Oh, okay, all right, you can go on." So I go in, and I'm in first class because it's a job and they're paying for it.
Yep.
And I'm the only person in first class that is not in a saffron robe, except for one guy in a suit. And he was I've later learned out, he was the Dalai Lama's personal secretary. And I'm sitting there, and I pull out my computer to try and write this statement because I've got to be in parole hearing the following week, and nothing will come. And I think to myself, here you are. You're on a plane, you're 4 rows away from one of the greatest spiritual leaders in the world today, if not the greatest.
Mm-hmm.
And, you're helpless. You're just stuck with this resentment, this bile. And I thought to myself, well, how do people wouldn't it be great if you could talk to him? And I thought, well, how do people get to talk to the Dalai Lama? They write a letter. So I asked the flight attendant for a couple pieces of paper and a pen, and I hid it because I didn't want her to see what I was doing, because I thought if she, sees that I'm trying to write, she would go, no, you don't disturb him. So I didn't write a salutation. I just started in on the letter, and I just said, well, I finally put it out, "Your Holiness, please forgive this intrusion today, but forgiveness is one of the reasons I'm writing you. I've been told by many people, spiritual people in my life, that I must find a way to forgive this man who murdered my father, blah, 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 blah." I tell him the story. And And I lean across, and I sign Maurice LaMarche, seat 4D. So I lean across to this monk who's very cheerful, and he's eating the regular food and all that, and he just seemed approachable. And I said, "How would I get a note to His Holiness?" He goes, "Oh, just give it to a secretary." I said, "Who's that?" He goes, "The guy in the green suit." And I said, "Oh, okay, thanks." So I go up to the green suited guy, who reminded me of nobody so much as the soup Nazi from Seinfeld. I said, he goes, "What?" I go, I have a note for His Holiness. He goes, "What note?" Is that this note? I'm gonna give it to you, and if you read it and whatever you think, I put myself in your hands, so I'm there, standing there in the aisleway, and I thought, well, this looks bad. Let me make it as though I needed to go to the bathroom anyway, and I just happened to drop off a note to His Holiness.
Smart, yeah, very smart.
The 14th Buddha of compassion. And so I go to the I go to wait for the bathroom, and I feel a tap on my shoulder, and it's the secretary guy, and he goes, "You will see it now." And I go, "You're kidding." And he goes, No kidding. He will see you now." So I go, and the Dalai Lama's in like 1A, the window seat, and there's this wizened older Lama with him, and he gets up and goes across the aisle to the empty 2 seats, which I realized at that point they bought those 2 seats for nobody to sit in, just so nobody would be across the Dalai Lama to bother him, which I have now done. And so he goes and sits there, and I'm next to His Holiness, and he looks out over his glasses like this. And I'm like, and he goes, "Hmm?" And I go, and I don't, all I'm thinking is, well, he's thinking, you impudent pup or something like that. But so I just go, let me get to the point. So I go, "Your Holiness, no, I'm remembering it wrong. He spoke first. I'm sitting with the big stupid look on my face, and he goes, "Your letter touched me very much." And I said, "Oh, thank you, Your Holiness." He goes, "Yes, I related to your letter." And I said, "You did?" And he goes, "Oh, yes." And I didn't know anything about his personal history at all. I'd never seen Kundun or anything like that. "When I was younger, the Chinese army came into my monastery, my country, and they killed and tortured many of my friends as I was spirited away. And I had a great anger at these Chinese army men. And I knew if I was to be Dalai Lama, I must be rid of this anger." I said, "Well, what did you do, Your Holiness?" He said, "Well, I thought of Chinese army men like this. Here is life of Chinese army men. Here is where he kills. But back here, he is infant, small child, teenager, goes on first date, joins army. Here is where he kills. But here, rest of life, chance to become a good person." And I said, so Your Holiness, are you saying that I should hate the sin but love the sinner, or forgive the sin but forgive the sinner but not the sin? He goes, "By forgive, I do not mean forget. I cannot forget what Chinese army men did to my friends. You cannot forget what this man did to your father. You have a special place in your mind, a torture chamber for him, a prison cell, yes?" And I said, "Yes, I do." "And you do terrible things to him in there, do you not?" And I go, "Yes, I do, every morning." I want you to let him out of the prison of your mind. Just let him walk out. And in that moment, I don't know why, I had this visualization of this man whom I'd called uncle all my life, sitting on a bench in a prison cell and getting up and walking out the side of my head like he just left. And I felt my shoulders drop, and I felt the knot in my stomach untie. And I said, "Well, thank you, Your Holiness." It's interesting what you said about the life of the Chinese army man. I said, my little son was in my back seat just the other day, and he said, "Dad," and it was the week that they captured Saddam Hussein. Okay. He said, "Dad, I bet Saddam Hussein was once a really good little kid." He goes, "No," he said, "Dad, it's hard to imagine Saddam Hussein as a little kid, isn't it?" And I go, "Well, why, buddy? Because he was a big scruffy beard and it was all filthy." And he goes, "No, but he must have just at one point been a guy like me that just had friends and played with his friends in the schoolyard and stuff." Mm-hmm. And I said, "Oh," and the Dalai Lama broke into laughter and he said, "Your son, very wise, your son." And he took my hand and he said prayer in his language, and I said, "Thank you, Your Holiness. I can't promise that. There's nothing I can do except pray for the success of your mission and carry on, and hopefully I'll be able to help people with this story, what you've told me." And he goes, "Then that is enough." Wow. And he let my hand go, and I went back to 4D, and he stayed up in 1A, and I thought, God, maybe I can catch up to him and thank him again. But they spirited him off the plane, and I've never seen him again. But, I've had people tell me that just hearing that story, let go of some major. I don't get upset at people who cut me off in traffic. It's like the guy who killed my father. I even go sometimes 3-4 days without even thinking about him. Wow, it's been many years, but and then I do, and then I have to perform that ritual and do that meditation of letting him out of the prison of my mind, because it really is. He doesn't feel it. It's my mind that's the prison, and that prison is for me, because as Jung says, you're everybody in your dreams and you're everybody in your thoughts, because you can't be anybody else. So I let that version of him out.
Yeah. Well, okay, we'll have to do a part 2, but also that physical release, of that's the most powerful meditation. And yes, you said it might come up here and there, but to have such a visceral reaction of where you just feel your shoulder and the knot in your stomach, wow, what a joy!
Thank you. I'm not the Dalai Lama, so, and I don't even know if the Dalai Lama, it might still come up for him, so I don't beat myself up just because that resentment or that anger comes up. I just let it go again. It's a series of life is a series of lettings go, really. When it comes right down to it, just the more I let go of, the happier I am, including my concepts of how things should be.
Yep.
Because what the heck do I know?
Life-changing moment, and just as a side point, you don't need to comment on this, how you were, potentially struggling to write a note about, when your father, about your father with the parole, you couldn't quite get the words, and then you're on the plane, you get the right words, and it hits with the Dalai Lama. That's a beautiful story.
I just need to tell you, the secretary came back and gave me back the note and went, "Good note."
Brilliant.
It's like, wow. Thank you. I don't think you dispense the compliments all that often, so I'm going to take that. Thank you.
Brilliant.
It's a Pulitzer Prize for this note, as far as I'm concerned, Mr. Secretary.
Yeah. I reckon what we're going to do to wrap up the podcast is to do a rapid fire segment. So the first thing that springs to mind, but you can take your time to think about it. They don't need to be rapid. These are some fan questions, and they're hard. What's your favorite role?
My favorite role is I love a good jelly roll. No, I'm kidding.
It took me a second.
I don't know if that's a food in Australia, jelly rolls.
No, but we can gather. Also, most of the audience is it's an international audience.
All over the world. I've been lucky to play so many terrific characters. I love Kif. I love Egon from Real Ghostbusters. But I have to say that just inching not even an inch, a millimeter ahead of the wall is the Brain, because Brain is he has the. I mean, I don't have his IQ, but I have his the sense of, especially when I was in, an earlier part of my life, which was where I was when we recorded the original episodes, a sense of thwartedness, that life was thwarting me and my big plans for superstardom and all of that Michael Keaton stuff and all of that, so his sense of thwartedness I related to. And I still have a character flaw of taking myself too seriously. And that's Brain's main character flaw. And that's why he's so funny.
Yeah.
Because he takes himself way too seriously. Peter Hastings has always said he loves to write for characters that take themselves too seriously. So it was for him to be a sort of the showrunner on Pinky and the Brain, and me playing it as a person who both takes himself too seriously but loves playing people like that, to me that was magic. And getting to have the perfect partner in the endless optimism of Rob Paulsen and the character of Pinky was just, it's a marriage made in heaven. And I don't know why they haven't made a Pinky and the Brain the motion picture yet, but I think it's due. Certainly every other 90s character's been rebooted into a feature film. It's time for Pinky and the Brain.
I agree.
I think it's a good time for Pinky and the Brain to hit theaters.
I agree. Someone put it out there. Contact the producers, the head of networks. Let's get it out there.
There you go. Yeah.
Favorite, you've potentially answered this, favorite person to collaborate with?
Well, definitely as an actor, I've had several. I mean, I love collaborating with Billy West. I love collaborating with John DiMaggio, Tress MacNeille. Just wonderful people. But, there was a perfect bit of chemistry with Rob Paulsen there. The duo of Pinky and the Brain was great. John Lovitz from The Critic. I mean, I loved working with John. I learned so much about trusting myself to be funny. And John just taught me so many things about comedy and about pausing and waiting and being true to a character and really listening. It was great.
What excites you most about getting a new job?
Getting to meet the people, getting to meet my castmates, and knowing, figuring out what kind of acting adventure we're going to go on with this project. That's probably the most fun. And even in a situation like we just wrapped on Zootopia 2, but it was great getting in the room with Byron and Jared, who were the producers. They were my fellow actors, even though they aren't the actors that are going to be in the movie. I got to work with them. Although the God, her name won't come to me. The young lady who plays Mr. Big's daughter was also in the booth and was feeding me lines. So, gosh, I wish I could remember her name. But she's a wonderful actor as well as an animator. And please watch the credits for her because she's wonderful. Why won't her name come to me? Like I said, Michael, you remember the thing, but not the name of the thing.
Every podcast is like at least 5 names of both the jury, the interviewer, and the interviewee of what's the name or what's that TV show or what's that movie. Yeah, I forget. Yeah. I forget things all the time. Next big dream.
Hang on. We have a solution. She deserves the juice.
Okay.
Who played Frou in Zootopia? Oh, that's not right. Who played the character of Frou in Zootopia? Leah Latham. Yeah, she's wonderful. Yeah, she's really great and a wonderful animator as well, an artist. So anyway, next question.
Next big dream or goal?
I would like to write. My big dream is I actually scribbled this down the other day because I said it and it cracked up everybody at the table. If I don't write something before I die, I'm going to kill myself. So I need to get myself an office or go to a cabin for 2 months, and I need to write my story. I want to write either a book or a one-man show or a one-man show that comes from a book or something. I need to write something. So that's my next journey.
I'll give you unsolicited advice. Speaking to Ernie Hudson, who I don't know if you were involved with when you did Ghostbusters, but anyway, he is also.
I love Ernie.
Yeah, such a terrific guy. And you've basically written your book. All the interviews, the Comic-Cons, if they're recorded, you can get transcripts, you can re-listen. You've already said your story. So you can literally copy it or get the transcript or rehear yourself. And then when you've got the words, you can change it to how you want to put it. So you've already done most of the work. Anyway, that's my unsolicited advice, and I'm looking forward to your book. Any advice you have for people who are considering sobriety?
Don't take the first drink and go to a meeting. Let yourself give yourself the chance, give yourself a shot at a day of sobriety and go to a meeting of Alcoholics Anonymous. It's not the only way, but in my experience, it's been the easier, softer way. With the people I know who are in Alcoholics Anonymous, not that I'm identifying myself as a member of Alcoholics Anonymous. You've got to understand that.
Yeah. Any advice you want to give to people who want to try something different on you, but perhaps a bit fearful of doing so?
Who want to try something different on me?
Different or new?
Different or new?
Yeah.
Oh, gosh. Any advice? Speaking as somebody who procrastinates, I would say don't procrastinate. That's, my big problem has been I stated this, that I wanted to do this, roughly 6 months ago, and I haven't done it yet. So I need to stop procrastinating and get into it. Just do it. Just do it. Because I don't know how much time I have left. I'm 67. According to the actuary tables of most, insurance companies, I've got 11 years left. Maybe I'll make it longer. Maybe tomorrow is my last day. I don't know, but I need to get into it. I need to do that thing that I'm afraid to do.
You'll do it.
Fear is the great thief. As I heard Anthony Hopkins say in an interview, fear is the great thief, and it truly is. Steals more from ourselves. Our own fear steals more from ourselves than anybody ever stole from us.
Agreed. And before we go, how can people follow you, keep up to date with you, and all of that cool stuff?
Well, I don't post a whole bunch on social media, but if you want to follow me, I'm on Instagram. It's Maurice_LaMarche, MAURCE_LAMARCHE. Occasionally I will still type up something on X, and that's my name, all one word without the underscore. And you can follow me on Facebook. I don't do TikTok.
Okay.
TikTok, yeah.
All of that
because China.
Oh, good boys. All of that's going to be in the episode notes so people can check it out. Thank you so much. I really appreciate your wisdom. You're very uplifting and empowering, and I took a lot out of it. And yeah, thank you so much.
Thank you so much. It's been a pleasure to talk with you, Mike. You're a wonderful interviewer and an excellent listener. Thank you so very much for your time today.
I love how Maurice talks about, despite going through enormous challenges and difficulties, he decided to make a positive change and move forward. Instead of replaying what was and questioning why it happened, Maurice recognizes every moment is important and we need to stop living in the past and spend time in the now. That's not to say don't feel your emotions and process them. Maurice is simply encouraging us and giving us the tools to acknowledge and move ahead. The one who really suffers is ourselves by living too much in what could have been or worrying about what may happen. Maurice also talks about how helping others move forward has also been crucial to his own evolution, development, and life purpose. Sometimes, when we have a lot going on, a simple act of kindness can go a long way. I also really admire Maurice's outlook on how he treats people and his philosophy on treating others how you want to be treated. This act may seem simple, but it goes a lot further than you may realize. So I'll leave you with this epic quote. Even if you fall on your face, you're still moving forward. Victor Khayyam.
Thank you for listening to the Funny and Failure podcast, exploring the deeper side of comedy.